Hello and welcome to the Wigtown Poetry Prize 2021 launch. I'm Marjorie Lotfy, a poet and the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Wigtown Festival Company. I'm delighted to join you this evening and for you to be joining us from wherever in the world you're sitting, whether it's from Dumfries and Galloway or Scotland or even further afield. Last year at the Poetry Prize event, we had such an incredible audience from all over the world. And although we weren't able to meet in person, as we have done for so many years, it was a great joy to have so many people joining us from all kinds of far-flung places, so that we're hoping that you're joining us from one of those places as well this evening. We decided to go ahead and do the launch this way this year. The Wigtown Poetry Prize was founded in 2005 and it's now one of the best established poetry prizes in the UK. We do accept entries in English from anywhere in the world, so we're hoping you've got your best poems at the ready to send us before the end of the deadline at the end of May. But we also have other categories for Scots Gaelic, which we're delighted about, including again this year, and also poems in Scots. We also would love to see your pamphlets for the relatively new Alistair Reid Memorial Pamphlet Prize, and we also have a category called the Dumfries and Galloway Fresh Voice Award, which is to support an emerging writer from Dumfries and Galloway. You'll hear more about most of those categories later tonight. This year we have Billy Letford, who will be judging the Wigtown Prize as well as the Alistair Reid Pamphlet Prize. We have Robert Allen Jameson judging the Scots category this year, and Sandy NicDhòmhnaill Jones judging the Scottish Gaelic Prize. You'll be hearing from them later on in the event. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments box. Someone will be watching for those and feeding back through, so please feel free to ask us any questions throughout the event. Before we jump into every category, and the judges will be introducing themselves and talking a little bit about what they'll be looking for, I thought I would just take a minute to talk a little bit about the Pamphlet Prize, the Alistair Reid Pamphlet Prize, and do what I've done the last couple of years, which is to read you one of his poems. He was one of our great poets from Dumfries and Galloway. His work is known throughout the world. He's lived all over the world, but he is from the D&G area, and I'm holding one of his books that I love, Weathering, and I thought I would read a poem this year which I hope you'll realise or also feel that it kind of resonates with the year that we've had. It's called Was, Is, Will Be. It was to have been an enchanted spring, the house friendly, the neighbours kindly, the mornings misted, the birds soft-breasted, the children easy, the days lazy, with early flowers, the time ours. Not as it is, days ill at ease, a plague of crows, the first leaves slow, the children jumpy, the cook skimpy, slant rain in streams, goblin dreams, the roof leaky, work unlikely. Or will be later, when, like a dead letter, the past stiffens and afterthought softens, yet distant in winter I still wonder, was it we who engendered the spring's condition, or a ghost we had angered with expectation? It seems to me a fitting poem for this year. You'll be able to purchase the last two Poetry Prize winners in the bookshop at any point tonight or onwards. So we hope you'll have a look at those and enjoy the beautiful work in them both. I'm just going to hand over now to Billy Letford, who's going to introduce the Wigtown Poetry Prize as well as the Alistair Reid Pamphlet Prize.
Hi there folks, my name is William Letford and I have the pleasure of judging the Wigtown Poetry Prize and the Alistair Reid Pamphlet Prize. And I'd like to give you some advice. First of all, send me your work. Flood me with your poems. I get to meet you through the work you send, and in these strange times, that's something to be cherished. Send me something unexpected. Something that I didn't know I was looking for. That takes me somewhere I wasn't expecting to go, and I'll always remember I've been. You don't have to sing, but make sure I don't forget your voice. I look forward to meeting you through your work. Good luck.
Hallo, Karsten. Mishe Sandy NicDhòmhnaill Jones, agus sé bríomh bardach Gaelic son dúis ballan na húige, dávíle fichitsa a hunum. Seo a chéist a chai a chur orm. Dé a vis mi a sirig, an an dán a gútich dúis ballan na húige a chosnig. Chanil template huichte, ordu, no cuspad dia hin steechtje ac am idydd. Ach gebe dé yn crw, y gni, cuspad, steile, no farach gyn, y hys na barst, son yn dan achge. Bi misje y cwrlwch, fierin agus boichet, mar a sgrif kiet. Agus viction a kielachig, gonse, na boeren a lennis. Uderal, fier. Gu falle, le tjachgarach heen. Baioch. Dan a visgar taring ystjach, le baichet achgail, fuaim, cru, iandaien. Fus cusperen dorige na dorf. Cruachal. Gebe mo chusper jaloch no avistjoch a haan daan. Gumbie a tarikse shalig oed, taringoch no smeunjechal. Agus skillel. Dan giantje le jalon lut agus buai. Ham je gianne fuar voor, rish een euch paltjes barstoch Gaelic yn blione. Agus ham I tolichtje gen tjeeg na daan a vrenjechig, as eunish enjem no anje. Mo vianoch na tagrien ulle, son piprechig na kjari, agus tlach san gianev, poiesis. Gumme ma a heijlev. Hello friends, I'm Sandy NicDhòmhnaill Jones. I'm the Gaelic Poetry Judge for the Wigtown Poetry Prize 2021. This is the question posed to me. What am I looking for in a potentially winning poem? I do not have a fixed template, a formula, or a rigid set of criteria. But whatever form, genre, subject, style, or feeling the poets choose for their poems, I value truth and beauty, as Keats wrote, which for me means poetry exhibiting qualities such as authentic, with a ring of truth, an individual voice with its own message, beautiful, a poem that draws us in with beauty of word choices, sound, form, imagery, even if dealing with a dark or difficult subject. Original, whether the poem addresses a familiar or an unusual subject, that it offers fresh, striking or thought-provoking insight. And skillful, crafted with artistry, flair, mastery. I'm looking forward greatly to this year's cornucopia of Gaelic poetic talent. I'm glad that the poems to be judged will be completely anonymous and unattributed. My best wishes to all entrants for inspiration and joy in the making, the poiesis. Good luck.
The Scots tradition in poetry is ancient and vital, varied according to place and community. But what makes a poem effective in Scots is not so different from what makes a poem work in any language. While it's hard to be precise about the recipe, it's some combination of the musical flow of syllables, of carefully chosen visual imagery, and some kind of development of a unifying idea that surprises or charms in some fashion. The first matter is rooted as much in the flow of the smaller lexical words that join language together in a meaningful way without carrying meaning themselves, as much as those weightier ones that stand out with their concrete semantic quality. And attention to the fine detail of rhythm and cadence is important. Those more obviously Scots words that a poet may find attractive and apt are like the bricks, while the smaller and less noticeable are the mortar that binds these together. And they require just as much attention to get the Scots voice right. A few old Scots words gleaned from a dictionary connected by what otherwise reads like standard English will not have the same effect of wholeness. So take care with the small stuff too. The second question, sharply focused and well-chosen visual imagery, will always impact more on the reader's mind than abstractions. So let the images exemplify and illustrate your abstract ideas in apt metaphor or simile. But don't pile metaphor on metaphor without grounding the text in reality now and again. Otherwise, the effect may be confusing for the reader. The overarching idea that might lie behind the poem may well be a kind of argument or dialogue between different feelings or approaches, reaching a sort of synthesis and conclusion in the way that the classic sonic structure does. It's usually better to bring your reader to that conclusion having examined alternatives or a contrary view, rather than state directly what the core idea is at the beginning. But these are general thoughts, and one thing is for sure, poets and poetry will seek out and find their own unique ways of doing things, and that ultimately is what the reader enjoys, a unique approach that creates and executes its own rules in some striking way, and which then surprises.
I'm Eleanor Livingston, Festival Director of StAnza, Scotland's International Poetry Festival.
And I'm StAnza's Programme Coordinator, Annie Rutherford. Our 2021 festival takes place online this year from the 6th to the 14th of March. You can find more information at www.stanzapoetry.org.
We're delighted to be partners for the third year in the 2021 Wigtown Poetry Prize, which has just been launched. Last year, we programmed a special Wigtown Prize showcase at StAnza, and 8 of the 2019 Wigtown Prize winners read at that.
This year, we're thrilled that the Australian poet Jane Frank, who was runner-up in the 2020 Wigtown Prize, will read for us. You can hear Jane reading online at StAnza 2021 in one of our Poetry Centre Stage events on Sunday, the 14th of March.
We're hugely looking forward to finding out which Wigtown Prize winner will read at our 2022 festival.
But that's for later. Meantime, good luck from us to everyone who plans to send in a poem to the Wigtown Poetry Prize, and we hope to see lots of you at StAnza next month.
Hello, is Misha Alison Lang, Stúrica Górnan in Leorigan. I am the Director of the Gaelic Books Council, and we are delighted once again to be supporting the Gaelic Prize at this year's Wigtown Poetry Competition. Habéis na blianachen ga an dúis seo a bhuanachug le cútcin na barst a sear a ha scríbige sa Gaelic as an láin G. Na misc Sandy NicDhòmhnaill Jones a ha gaví na briú an arpish and bliona. It's lovely to see that Sandy NicDhòmhnaill Jones, who was herself the winner of this prize a few years ago, is now going to be this year's Gaelic judge. To win this prestigious award, or to be shortlisted for it, is a significant milestone in the career of any poet, and we hope that many people will be encouraged to enter this year, whatever their level of experience. Get vistu crúneachíonn de bharsteach ailseach mar ha, ná get vistu scríbh dána san a chiad uair riamh, 32 pís a churisteach a son na farpish. Our thanks to the team at Wigtown, who organise everything to do with the competition. It's unfortunate that we can't all be together for the launch, but let's hope that the day is not far off when we can all see one another in person again. Ag alm a ha chud duribh géin ulig, glaiste nar tehan was jay wa, hai fémal a bhí lévig sa scríbhig, a conultrug agus a cuireann céil a smuintin. Agus ma gas sin a dhéanú an an crú barstoch, ver tlach agus tócail géim. Ha mín dóchas go bhí sé péin ar brosnachig, agus gur ma héitslih leis an scríbhig.
The Saltire Society is very happy to be sponsoring the Wigtown Scots Poetry Competition for 2021. The strength and importance of Scotland's languages cannot be overemphasised, and through awards and projects such as this, we are ensuring they continue to flourish. Wigtown Book Festival have worked hard to move to an online platform during these difficult times, and the increase in entries to last year's competition is testament to this. It's great to see poet and novelist Robert Allen Jameson is the Scots Poetry Judge this year. And we at the Saltire Society are looking forward to seeing what 2021 brings. And all the best for the Poetry Festival. Thank you.
This year, as in past years, the winner of the Dumfries and Galloway Fresh Voice Award will receive mentorship, but also a week at the Moniack Mhor Creative Writing Centre near Inverness. It's a wonderful place to write, and here's a short clip of what they can expect of the centre, but also the surrounding area.
Is
Thank you, Sandy, for providing our musical interlude this year. We're really grateful. What a joy. We're thrilled to have last year's judges join us for this launch. In a normal year, we would have had them at the festival as a part of the programme, but last year that just wasn't possible because of all the things happening in the world. So we're delighted that they're here with us this evening and that they're going to give us a reading of their own work, as well as tell us how they found the process, how they found the judging. So first, I'd like to introduce Roseanne Watt.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Watt. I am a poet and a filmmaker from Shetland. I actually just moved to the island of Unst, which is the northernmost island in Shetland. And indeed the UK actually. So a big hello from the very far north. Since lockdown happened, I haven't actually been able to visit any other part of Shetland, so I've been very far north for a very long time. I hope that doesn't come across in this video. I was the judge of the Poetry Prize and the Ulster Pamphlet Prize last year for Wigtown, and it was just a beautiful task to have. I was so grateful to be asked, and I was especially grateful that it was 2020, actually, weirdly, that this task was mine, because even though we didn't get to have a proper prize-giving ceremony, I was just delighted to be able to distract myself with poetry during the months of the pandemic. I was very prone to the doom scroll and did not do myself any favours by that, and I had a wonderful task to just immerse myself in poetry and distract myself from the anxiety of everything by returning to this wonderful form, an important form that poetry is to me. So I was very grateful for the task, and also to then come across the eventual winners in Anna Woodford and Claire Cox, and also of course the runner-up Jane Frank, and all of their work just spoke to me and resonated in a way that I really needed during that stressful old year, and what continues to be a bit of a stressful year, but we have at least the hope of the vaccine, which in itself is poetry, don't you think? Yes, thank you so much to Wigtown organisers for the opportunity and for bringing us together digitally, even though we couldn't be together. We were together, I think. So I'm going to read some poems that are the first. I'm going to read, I think, one from my book Mhor Die, and then a couple of new ones which haven't really had much of an airing. So this poem is called Fox, and the reason I wanted to read it was because I was listening to a podcast with one of my favourite poets of all time called Ada Limon, and she was speaking about the way she's trying to write poems now that put less of a burden on the non-human as like metaphors, and just to allow interactions with the non-human in the poetic form to just be and allow them to be. And I think that's something that I was trying to reach for in this poem, Fox, which is about one of those encounters with the non-human. So, this is Fox. She sat so brazen in the lovely blood of the street lamps, we thought in our old arrogance that we had imagined her there, as if we who dared to call her thief could ever call her likeness into being. Her presence stilled us. She did not look our way, though she could hear the weight of breath in our lungs, the absurd fanfare of our bodies. I'm sure we smelled of damage long since done, all oil and smoke, untethered by some distance, something quelled and dormant lingering in our skin. But this night was never about us. We were nothing but a minor intrusion on her evening work. She did not move when we did. Beneath her black gloves the wet street glistened like an altar. She let us pass, and we stole her image in furtive glances. So, the next two poems I'm going to read are, where they were published in the Poetry Magazine's summer edition in 2020. So, first, it was part of a showcase of the Edwin Morgan Poetry Prize winners, and Edwin Morgan's poems himself. So I was in the company of Niall Campbell and Penny Boxall, which are very, very lovely company to be in. So the first poem is called Ghostberry, and it's a poem which kind of responds to this piece of folklore that I read about, in which there are white berries known as ghosteberries that in some cultures believe they are food for ghosts, for wandering ghosts, and I found that an extremely compelling idea and fascinating idea. And the poem itself kind of ended up weirder and maybe more tongue-in-cheek than I thought it was going to, because I was reminiscing, or not reminiscing, because that sounds fond. I wasn't looking back fondly on, I was reflecting on some experiences I've had of trying to get a chronic illness diagnosed in the past. So it's partly about that. And then the next poem I'm going to read is called Nightingales. I wanted to read this one in particular because it resonates with my judge's commentary, on which you can read on the Wigtown website, and it's mainly about how I felt during the early weeks of lockdown that language was untethering from itself, and words were shifting their meanings. So nightingale was one of those words. So I'll start Ghostberry. I suppose the dead must also eat, though I can't for the life of me fathom how it works. I know the chosen berry is pale, a colour I've heard is pleasing to ghosts and kind on their digestive tracts, which are too thin to cope with the acid that sits below the skins of redder fruits, that tastes metallic when held between the front teeth, like blood, which just makes ghosts feel sad and nostalgic. I get this. A doctor once told me not to eat tomatoes for similar reasons, although I suspect he had little time for them in the first place. I think he disliked how the seeds spilled out when you cut them. It's messy and difficult, and sometimes they get under your fingernails. I don't like that either, though I still like tomatoes, and especially tinned tomato soup, which does indeed make me feel nostalgic for childhood sick days, and maybe that's the problem he was getting at. I can't say for certain. He didn't look at me so much as right through to the wall behind me. Anyway, it makes sense that haunting is a hungry business, hence the berry. I'm just quite surprised by ghosts having appetites and maybe even taste buds. I just didn't think they'd feel that need for weight, for something sitting in the belly. Don't they know how lucky they are? And finally, nightingales. Did you hear the news this morning? I mean the segment about the nightingales, about their wings. Not the hospitals, though they were there in the breath before the nightingales. I'm thinking about the birds. They say their wings are getting too short for the distances of their flight. They call it maladaptation. It means when a species' response to change ends up causing harm. It means bad fit sounds close to malady. I was listening to this as the bell of a dream softened in my head. That's another thing, isn't it? They say people are dreaming again, mainly about weird weather. Tsunamis, lava. A friend told me she dreamt of hailstones tapping at her window, but when she looked, she saw it was some people throwing teeth at the glass. Still, I don't remember mine. I woke and it was just the song down the corridor of waking, then news of the nightingales, whose wings are shortened because the pressure of drought means fewer eggs, because the timing of spring has shifted, and all this comes at cost of wingspan. I am talking about the birds and the beds, and if I dreamt of anything at all, I imagine it was not of weather, but thorns, furling down into my lungs, into that blue hallway where the heart is kept. And if there was indeed a song, I think it likely came from there, and travelled huge distances before morning. So that's me. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you so much to the Wigtown organisers, especially Claire and Colin for just all of the effort that's gone into organising this and editing the videos. So thank you so much. All the best, and stay well, stay healthy, and we're together even though we're apart. Goodbye.
Next up, we'll hear from George T. Watt, no relation to Roseanne, as to how the Scots Prize went last year.
Hello, my name is George T. Watt. I'm the Membership Secretary of the Scots Language Society and also scríb poesy and some cutty tales. I have been runner-up in the McCash Herald competition twice, and one of my poems was elected one of the top 20 of its year by the Scottish Poetry Library. One of my cutty tales was equally commended in Sangshaw. I would like to start by saying that judging the Scots lead section of the Wigtown Poetry Competition was a most memorable occasion. The 78 entries presented in Scots was of the highest quality. It's no exaggeration to say that gin ilka entry was published together, it would have made a fair significant and enjoyable volume. The subjects covered ilka facet of life, frae COVID, Alzheimer's, cancer, the flicht of the lost and the homeless, the dispossessed, the old, infirm, bairns, just anything you could imagine, even love. And o' Cailliard there was nocht. And man admit, I thought there would be 10, maybe a dozen gudgeons to single out for further examination, but yon was nae the case. Ilka poem had to be read 3 times through. I was speared for a short leet of 5. My short leet after 6 readings was 12. I eventually gotten it down to a short leet of 6 and felt recht dowie anent some of the work that was left out. So you see, it was both a hard job and a most rewarding ane. Now, I hae nae say in the editing of Lallan's magazine, the journal of the Scots Lead Association, but I did suggest the screevers should consider putting their work forward, and I'm glad to say some of the poems have already found their way into its pages. I'm going to read you now a couple of poems from my bookie Firth frae the Darg that I produced last year. There's a wee picture of it, though it'll be back to front. I was hoping to launch it at the Wigtown Poetry Festival, but well. The best laid schemes of mice and men, as they say. The first poem I'm going to read is ane cried Bruce. I wrote this with the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of our growth in mind. Bruce. A weary wap on the shore this evening, cause sae dowie, like my heart sae sair. I'm verfochten, weary, wi' all this fechten. O peace day come till I'm in my lair. At first it was Radgie, me and a pickle few, hiding out ilka nicht on muir or heights, hiddled in caves, hiddled frae view, hitting and running like squalls of rain at nicht. Aye, they days was good with the comradie, for ane to rid Scotia of the tyrant's cluch. Nae second thought anent the dark, aye ready to win or die, nae one would ever say enuch's enuch. The wop cries mournfu', heeding for the sun setting, and ma all Cuddy and me folly on a hint. We nae mair ken fit the morn's bringing, than yon glaikit bird for canny sing. I thought yon great battle would be the last of it. All Scotland would fall willing to a renewed kinrick. We'd want to work together, secure the future o' it. But na, there was aye them for zine was gulsach seek. Yon wop kens there's aye craws and corbies prayin', and a one racht nae watch for, man ken regret. As he'd estate, I canna rest. I'm an husband Athan, where borders, siller, trade, the poor, the sick, and the merchant. But worst of a', we hae within our sacred realm them for we'd rather ding their country doon. Put sail afore the common weal, our herdroch country, sae easy selt. The next poem is een cried Craggin. For them that dinna ken, Craggin is a hill. Nae an awfy big hill, but it guards the entrance to Glen Douglas, where we store our nuclear warheads. Craggin was where we gaed for our holidays when we was bairns. Craggin Hill. It would be grand to walk again o'er Craggin Hill. Yon ben o' my bairnhead has never left my een. I hae sclimmed mony a heich ben, mony a ken speckled mountain prized by yon Munro baggers, fail braggers, twitchers of mountains, for fail to see the beauty of our countryside. Bens are like women, to be considered, respected, loved even, but nae to be mounted and syne forgotten o. Craggin I loved wi' bairns my mother Yerth, pap to my young shanks as I explored her gentle braes, her rustling burnies, her bracken-covered howes and rocky outcrops wi' clinging wind-hewn rowan. I kent where the hewlet bid, where the buzzard nested, and the birthyard of mony a yow. I kent where the roe hiddled, the birks the spinkies lewed, and laughed at the midges as I pelted them with bracken leaves. I sat on favoured stanes and watched the deep waters. I scanned o'er toward Argyle's bowling green, but they heich hills meant nought to me like Craggin. It would be grand again to traipse o'er Craggin Hill, but yon earth is now ained by a fern poor. Hame to an arsenal of death, is milk sap turned to poison. My childish een can still sclim the innocent braes.
And last but not least, Anna Frater, who judged the Scots Gaelic Prize last year. Looking forward to hearing from her as well.
Bhí Anna Frater, agus cha iwriaram sa bhína me bhríthú na Dan Gaelic a cha an guristeach an dúirs bardach bhil an húge dávílas fichad. Cha de hic mí nar a gint mí op rianú an nólan a bh gróm. Le choras daichad pís bardach grílévig, din choramachig, agus het bedar bulach inju a haag, maar telefoonich deursne bardach. Ach ik en innaim, si tlach gewoon, gero ne warsin ik arbishich, bardach gechuristeach, gero ne warkumshin, die lewe, agus a voorvoer goedje on a 4 jaar Gaelic. My name's Anne Frater, and I was asked to be the judge for the Gaelic entries for the Wigtown Poetry Prize in 2020. I didn't realise when I agreed what a task it was going to be. There were over 40 entries, and it took quite some time to narrow the selection down and to try and choose one to win the prize. At the same time, it was a pleasurable task because there were so many entries, and most of them, the standard of Gaelic was very high. So it was a challenge, but a pleasurable one. An anseo tógáil rút a chail dorog an an aríru as a fres fan na StAire agus an inne is roa. Slot túis. A glánnig amach a fres fan na StAire huair sin lorogir. Slot túis má hénar. In inne a góga luar ga chainche. I dhan ag éicon sa nyclis hyr. Sa chai ar I chiad bus a rwych ar an habont. A hes rys y fysgol y rwag. Y fer y chwnig yr hwyr fych y fag an y dwcha. Y farloch, sy'r y feta gama, sy'r y Canada. Snachach ach inniw y chilig. Nach dy chynnig rys yn o yr o anam. Gys yn do'n nochga as an aris, on yn eidrig ddechgar Canada. Yn inne y hwglwt y machas y fwntich. A hwg teich le gael waith hyn. A chwnig mach agos o gan hwrs yn uai. A ha cwadram y machas na gilif, lafan i'r glonian, agos sŵl cwn. Yn tlach toes yn ish na hor yn y chawl. Ach gyda ha llawn i'r chymal rys le selotip. Ha haast nes ceintiche na slachten the lonu. This poem is about a real object, the man that it belonged to. And I wish I'd made him. Yardstick. Cleaning out the cupboard under the stair, we found it. My great-grandfather's yardstick. The man who read his Bible every night, who was a deacon in the Free Church and travelled on the first Sunday bus, who stood up to the red-haired schoolmaster, the man who saw all three sons leave the country on the Mhor and the Metagama and the Canada, and who saw only one of them return, who didn't meet the grandson who bore his name until the Canadian airman stood in the doorway. The man who reclaimed a croft from the moorland, who built his own house. The man who saw a son and a grandson buried. Who looks at me out of the photograph, hands on his knees and calm eyes. The yardstick has now lost its edges, but although one end is stuck on with sellotape, it's still more reliable than these versions. Bachelor buttons. Nam hyes yn haramon, marting na sabont, na siachan farskir vi falu. Salam, urni, salam, jevig, salam. Horsich is sharamon. Agus horsich sain shiroch anosjol kondoch plastic gehort fin de sjukaren. Kapon marshette da. Mis mönjachug een niprik, lawn bachelor buttons. Gehort mach a pocket me hanavar. Agus ga gloost for love geloof. Genuam. Fatten hiergaan. Se niprik follu, ga hilig erash. Shinne mar na sjukeren. Gach in na kondoch plastic heen. Agus krue making niprik. For anyone who doesn't know what bachelor buttons are, they're certainly what we used to call pan drops. Sitting in the sermon on Sunday morning, the pews almost empty. Psalm, prayer, psalm, reading, psalm. The sermon started, and the restless whispering of plastic wrappers being removed from sweets. That's not how things used to be. I think of the handkerchief full of bachelor buttons being taken out of my granny's pocket and passed down silently, from hand to hand, the length of the pew, and the empty handkerchief being passed back up. We are like the sweets, each one in its own plastic cover, and sorely in need of a handkerchief.
So that leaves it just to me to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're delighted that you were able to be a part of our lunch, and we're delighted to be able to include so many people this year. Every cloud does have its silver lining, and we're delighted to be able to throw the net even further afield this year. We hope you've got your poems at the ready and you're working on them, squirreling away, or writing some new things for us. And we're looking forward to reading them. All the judges can't wait to see what ends up in their boxes. Thank you to CT Productions for editing our film this evening. And again, thank you to all of you for joining. You can find out everything else you might need to know about the prize that I might have forgotten or might not have been said this evening at the website address, which is wigtownpoetryprize.com. Thanks again, and good night.
Oh.